Hey, what's up mortals? It's me, Robert Ramirez, aka Rarzrevenge here, and before we get into today's video, there's a few things I'd like to say. Firstly, I'd like to let you all know that we have a merch store. Some of the items in it are only available for a limited amount of time, so if you're interested, go into the description and check it out. Each purchase helps us make more content. Secondly, if this video hits 500 likes by the end of the week, then we'll continue this what if. Thirdly, if you didn't know, only 41.3% of you guys are actually subscribed to us. So please hit that subscribe button and click that bell icon. Now with that out of the way, let's get into the story. We continue our story at UA with Class 1A. As they are waiting for the bell to ring, they discuss the events that happened in the USJ along with the news cover about it and the attention that their class has been getting since the attack. This only goes on for a few short minutes until the bell rings, and everyone sits in their desk to wait for their substitute teacher, while also wondering who it will be. Then a couple of seconds later, a buffed All Might bursts through the doors, greeting the class with a bright smile and a cheerful hello. This surprises the whole class, including Izuku, but they remain quiet as the symbol of peace walks up to the podium, saying, "It's a pleasure to see you all again, especially after everything that happened in the USJ. Now we have quite a bit of things to cover today. But I understand if any of you have questions, so I wanted to take some time to answer any inquiries or concerns you may have. Please feel free to ask me anything." After this, a moment of silence goes by with All Might's students feeling unsure what to ask. But eventually, Sue breaks the ice by asking how Mr. Aizawa was doing, which Toshinori replies to saying, "He's doing fine. Unfortunately, Aizawa is still in a medically induced coma, but he's stable and should wake up in a few days. However, he'll need to be in the hospital for a few weeks after, so in the meantime, I'll act as his replacement." Hearing about their teachers worries a handful of the class, but are at least happy to know he'll recover. A few other small questions are then asked, but everyone is still avoiding the big one because they don't really know how to say it. Through a frustrated Bakugo wanting to move on, suddenly and bluntly asks, "Alright, since everyone else is too chicken to ask, what's with the weak and pathetic form you turned into after the fight with those villains? I'm sure we're all dying to know, so just tell us already." This question causes the class to look at Kachan, not expecting anyone to ask the question like that. But they all look back at All Might, curious to hear his answer. In response, All Might goes down into his weak form and explains his injury, mentioning that he got it from a villain, but does leave out specific details, also lies about his quirk slightly, saying that it allows him to transform and use incredible power, which everyone buys with exception of Izuku and Bakugo for obvious reasons. Once All Might finishes his explanation, and a few more follow-up questions are asked by different students. Though the biggest one is if the injury negatively affects his hero work, and he honestly answers that it does, which concerns everyone but Toshinori, still in his weak form, simply smiles and says, "Hey, no reason to worry. I could still take on just about any villain. I just won't be doing it so often. I know you're worried about me along with the future too, but I'll have to retire at some point. That's why I became a teacher, here to help you young heroes in training, like yourselves, to reach the full potential, and I'm confident that you'll all become pros. Then you'll easily be the next symbol of peace, who can take my place." This calms everyone down, though they're still a little on edge about knowing All Might's condition. They are feeling better about it. Toshinori then asks if there are any more questions that they have. In a brief moment of consideration, Sue raises her hand, asking, "All Might, I was wondering if you could... Can you tell us what the leader of villains was interrogating Mr. Aizawa about? Me and Mineta did hear him mention something about you, but we were too freaked out to really process what he was saying." This catches Toshinori a little off guard, but he plays it off cool and quickly answers, "Oh well, thanks to what young Midoriya had told us, we know that they were trying to get personal information on me. Like family or close friends, but since Aizawa didn't know anything, they were unable to learn much, so there's nothing to worry about there." With this answer, no one else has any more to ask, so All Might gives a request to everyone to not mention any of this to anyone, and they all agree to keep it a secret. Toshinori then moves on to informing the class about the UA Sports Festival. Hearing about the sports festival gets the class excited, having completely forgotten it was even coming up, but a few students question if it's a good idea to hold it after the villain attack, but All Might explains that the administration thinks it's a good way to show that UA is safer than ever. All Might also mentions that it will be fine due to the extra security that the school is getting, but the biggest reason why the festival will be held is that it's a huge opportunity for all the students at UA, so it's not something that they can just cancel or postpone. All Might proceeds to explain more about its importance, some more, but at the end of this he says, "I know it sounds odd, but trust me, the sports festival is bigger than you think. If you can show off your talents well enough during it, you could be set off for a great path to become a pro. You only have one chance a year, and 3 chances in a lifetime. No aspiring hero can afford to miss this festival. This last remark makes everyone feel more determined and aesthetic for the sports festival, but they don't dwell on it for long. After some time, during a break, most of Class 1A hangs back and talks about the sports festival, getting more hyped for it as they do. Though Uraraka is clearly the most excited as she keeps going around saying that she'll be giving it her all and telling everyone else to do their best in an attempt to pump them up more, and is generally being quiet, intense compared to how she normally is, confusing pretty much everyone there. Since no one knows what to say, they just let her keep going, and eventually the remainder of the class heads down to the cafeteria with Ida, Uraraka, Tsu, Kirishima, and Izuka heading there together as a group. While on the way to the cafeteria, Izuka stops the group and asks Uraraka why she was acting so intense, and she really doesn't know how to respond. So Ochaku embarrassedly says that she's just really excited. A short conversation then starts, which leads Tsu, who's a little curious, to ask Uraraka why she wanted to become a hero. And Uraraka admits that it's for the money, which does surprise the group and embarrass Uraraka because of how selfish it sounds, but she tries to explain her reason, more saying, "I know it sounds really selfish, but please, don't take it the wrong way. I do want to help people, but I also want to give my parents an easy life. They've worked so hard and have had to worry about money all the time. I really want to make it so that they don't ever have to be stressed out again. And take it easy, you know?" Once everyone hears Uraraka's explanation, they feel her reason is pretty admirable, telling Ochaku that it is just as valid as their reasons to be pros, and that she isn't selfish at all, making her feel better about it. As the conversation is about to move to everyone else's reason for becoming a hero, All Might arrives in his weak form and greets his students. This causes the group to stop talking and hesitantly say hi, calling him All Might by accident, not knowing what else to call him, though Izuku is an exception, actually saying nothing. Toshinori then looks around, worried others heard them, and quickly whispers in response, "Listen, I understand that this is very strange and you're still trying to wrap your head around this, but in the future, when I'm not all buffed up, please refer to me as Mr. Yagi, so no more people find out who I am. Remember, it's imperative that we keep this a secret." Tsu, Ida, Uraraka, and Kirishima all apologize and promise to call All Might by Mr. Yagi when it's necessary. After this, Toshinori apologizes for interrupting them during their conversation, but states that he needs to speak to Izuku about some important things. Naturally, Deku's friends ask about it, and All Might just says that it's just some stuff about the investigation, along with him wanting to check up on Izuku and thank him properly for the heroic job he did during the USJ, which helps to satisfy the group's curiosity. Happy with the reason given, Ida, Tsu, Uraraka, and Kirishima head to the lunchroom with no hesitation, as Midori leaves with All Might to talk in the teacher's lounge. Before we go back into the story, I'd like to say that we've got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes over the hard facts of the anime presented. Now, in case you guys didn't know, we have a third channel called We the Celestials Naruto What If? We the Celestials Naruto What If mainly focuses on our Naruto What If series. If you're interested in content like this, please go check out the description down below. Now with that out of the way, let's get back into the story. Once Deku's friends make it into the cafeteria and get in line, they begin talking about how Deku is so lucky to be getting praise from All Might for what he did, while also wondering if All Might is interested in Deku's abilities, which catches the attention of Todoroki, who was listening in, causing him to wonder about a few things himself. Meanwhile, with Deku and his dad in the teacher's lounge, as they both sit down, All Might asks his son how he's been doing, trying to make sure he's okay after everything that happened. Deku answers saying that he still feels bad about failing to handle the villains during the attack, but his father comforts him, saying that he did better than most students could have done, making Deku feel slightly better. Then, due to Deku being concerned for his dad, questions him about how he's been feeling since the attack, which is when All Might reveals that he can only be in his buff form for half an hour, shocking Midoriya quite a bit, causing him to inquire how it's even possible to go from a few hours to only 30 minutes. And All Might replies, "Well, you see, All for One has different facets of power. Though I don't understand it fully myself, it is possible to tap into its full power, and I mean more than 100%. Toshinori pauses, looking at his hands as he continues. "And another thing to remember is that, in passing All for One to you, I'm left with only remnants of the power. It's like if I handed you a torch, and I'm only left with embers of it that get used up the more I use the power. And because I tapped into the true power of One for All to use my United States of Smash during the fight with that Nomu, I lost a ton of those embers, meaning it won't be long before I'm powerless and unable to be a pro." This makes Deku worry even more about his father, but All Might just laughs and says, "Ha ha ha! Don't sweat it, kiddo. This is my fault in the first place, for letting my emotions get the better of me. I was just furious when I saw you, Aizawa, 13, and the other students injured. I was furious with myself and those villains, so I lost control. But I'll deal with this like I always do. Okay? We should move on. There's more important things to talk about other than this. While Deku is worried, this helps him to relax. For now, his father moves on to the main topic. All Might admits to Deku that the main reason he wanted to talk to him is to discuss the sports festival and check up how he's adjusting to using One For All. Deku talks about his minor progress so far, but most importantly, he mentions that he used One For All at 100% multiple times during the USJ attack, and how it broke his finger during it. Toshinori then tells Deku that it seems that he'll need to train much more so that Deku can be ready when the time comes for the Symbol of Peace to retire. This concerns Deku, but also confuses him slightly. All Might clarifies, saying that with his retirement unfortunately having to happen very soon, he will have to be strong enough to handle the villains that will inevitably rise up, and be able to take the mantle of the #1 hero. All Might then asks Izuku if he still wants to become the next symbol of peace for the world, which Midori says he does, though is unsure about his abilities, but Toshinori, trying to encourage his son, tells him that he's more than capable and that he'll be able to prove to himself during the sports festival. As All Might continues, he states that the entire country will be watching the festival, telling Izuku to think of it as a debut and introduce himself to the world as the next great hero by winning and proudly stating, "I am here for all to hear." A little unsure how to respond, Deku is feeling hesitant about this, still trying to take in everything from before, but after thinking for a moment, he pushes his doubts aside and gives a confident look to his dad. Toshinori smiles at his son, lending more encouragement and support, but once there's a free moment, Izuku finally gets up an opportunity to ask his father if he has any ideas of who Shigaraki's master could be, but All Might brushes the question off and tells Deku that they'll talk more about it at home. With that response, Toshinori tells Izuku to head on back to class. Back with Class 1A, as they're starting to pack up to head home, a large number of students from the other courses gather around their door, making it so they can't leave. Ida asks the crowd if they have some sort of business with their class, but before an answer can be given, Bakugo abruptly interrupts, saying that they clearly have to check out the competition, and proceeds to egg on the large group. As this happens, a student named Shinzo steps out of the crowd and calls out Kachan by throwing an insult back at him and towards Class 1A, clearly annoying Bakugo in the process. Shinzo then takes this opportunity to warn Kachan and the rest of Class 1A that if they're not careful during the sports festival, then they'll lose their spot in the hero course to him. Shinzo basically declares war on Class 1A, with others in the crowd doing the same as Bakugo just walks through ignoring them all, frustrating the mob further. Once Deku goes home, All Might arrives an hour later, and with Inko, they sit their son down to have an important talk, where Toshinori mainly reveals the true origin of One For All, along with mentioning a villain named All For One, explaining his overwhelming quirk. These facts, of course, leave Izuku dumbfounded, trying to think of how such a quirk can exist, and only responding to ask follow-up questions to understand better. This is how he also finds out his father's injury came from the very same villain that made One For All. With everything that Izuku just learned, he's able to make a connection and ask his dad if All For One could have created the Nomu from the USJ, and if he's also Shigaraki's master, which All Might nods his head with a worried look, replying, "I'm not sure. I thought he died during our last fight years ago, but considering the Nomu had more than one quirk, I say it's unfortunately possible." This unsettles both Izuku and Inko. As a dead silence fills the room, All Might breaks it with more worrisome info. "Son, if One For All is alive, then you'll have to face him just like I did. Maybe face the League of Villains itself. It won't be easy. In fact, it'll probably be the greatest challenge of your life. But I'll do everything in my power to either take care of it before you have to, or at least ensure you're ready if I can't. Either way, you have a big job ahead of you, understand?" Hearing this leads Deku to feel quite a bit more anxious and nervous. Nevertheless, when Izuku thinks back to everything that happened barely 11 months ago, he remembers his dream and the responsibility he now has because of One For All. So Midori, in addition to putting away all of his concerns, also stands up with a determined grin, saying, "Yeah, I get it, but no matter what, I won't let this power go to waste. I'll work hard to become a hero who can stand against anyone, including All For One. After all, I'm the son of All Might. How hard can it be?" All Might smirks and chuckles, telling his son that he's glad to see him determined, but not to get cocky yet, at least until they train a lot more. And with that, the 2 weeks of training before UA Sports Festival begins. During this time, Izuku improves quite a bit with his father's help, but one of the most important things worth mentioning is that they learn something odd when it comes to how Spartan Boost along with One For All affect each other and work with one another. A few days into their training, as Deku practices using One For All and Spartan Boost individually to improve his abilities to use them, him and his father start talking about how the two quirks function, on their own and together. This is where they figure out, or more like assume, that the powers haven't really combined yet. You see, while only Spartan Boost is active, it increases traits like speed, strength, durability, etc. for Izuku, but it doesn't do anything to increase the power of One For All when both quirks are used at the same time. And One For All doesn't seem to do anything to increase Spartan Boost abilities either. The increased durability from Spartan Boost is what makes it so Midoriya can use One For All without hurting himself, but that's all that seems to work together as for now. Understandably, this raises more questions than answers, and they decide to look into it more further down the line. But other than that, Izuku's training progresses well, and by the end of the 2 weeks, Midoriya with Spartan Boost can increase his physical traits by 3 times and can use 6% of One For All by itself, meaning he can use 18% with no issue when using the two quirks at the same time, and is able to use full calling much more often. But while Izuku has made good progress, by no means has anyone else been left behind, like Bakugo, who made massive leaps in handling his quirk and along with his power in general, being driven purely to show Deku up and to finally prove that he's better. Time flew by quickly, and before anyone knew it, it was the morning of the festival. Now with Izuku as him and All Might get ready to head for the sports festival, Inko tells her son to do his best but also be careful and tells Toshinori to cheer him on as well, making them both smile as they walk out the door. At the festival stadium, a large number of people, pros and journalists arrive. Many are excited to see Class 1As in action after hearing everything that happened at the USJ. Meanwhile, back in the waiting room, Ida walks in and informs everyone that they'll be entering the arena soon, telling them to be ready. Though Izuku is acting very calm on the outside, he's decently nervous in his head as he waits. But he isn't the only one, as a few of his classmates are also trying to compose themselves. While everyone readies their nerves for the upcoming competition, Todoroki decides to stand up and walk over to Izuku, feeling that it's the time to say something to his opponent. That's going to be it for today's video. Thank you all for watching to the end. Now, there's a few more things I'd like to go over before the video ends. On behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank the writers for this video, as well as the editors for this video. Their details will be in the description down below. If you're a voice actor, editor, or writer, or you're interested in becoming one of those, go to the Discord that is in the description of this video and hit up one of the heads of those areas. We're always looking for more members to join us. That's it from us for today's video, so thank you all for watching, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're interested, and hit that like button if you liked the video. Until next time, peace out mortals, have an amazing day.